Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day. A little bit cool, but it's going to warm up in the afternoon. Without further ado, we are going to get started. So, Marc-Andre Fleury made 26 saves in the Wild's 5-3 win over the Pittsburgh Penguins yesterday. So, this could most likely be the final game for Marc-Andre Fleury and final season for Marc-Andre Fleury. That's what I meant to say. I know that first part didn't come out right. But this will most likely be the final season for Marc-Andre Fleury and most likely the final game in Pittsburgh for Marc-Andre Fleury. So, he just had to get a win to close out the game in style. So he did a lot with the Pittsburgh Penguins during his time there. He spent 13 seasons, played 13 seasons for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and his records was a 375, 216, 68 record with a 2.58 goals against average and a .912 save percentage. And he played 691 games with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he's a three-time Stanley Cup champion with the Penguins as well, winning the Stanley Cup 2009, 2016, and 2017. And one moment I could remember about Marc-Andre Fleury when he was on the Pittsburgh Penguins, going back to Game 7 of the 2009 Stanley Cup Final. Red Wings were the defending Stanley Cup champions heading into the Stanley Cup Final and heading into the 2008-2009 season because they won the Stanley Cup in 2008, which was against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So these two teams faced off against each other for the second time in the Stanley Cup Final that year. And one memory I have of Marc-Andre Fleury was that in the final seconds of that Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final at Joe Louis Arena, Marc-Andre Fleury made an incredible save, and then the buzzer sounded, and the Penguins won the Stanley Cup. It would be the third Stanley Cup in franchise history at the time because, of course, they won in 1991 and 1992, where Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr won the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that's one memory I had of Marc-Andre Fleury on the Pittsburgh Penguins. But like I said, he's done a lot with the team during his 13 seasons with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and his 375 wins and 2.58 goals against average are the most in Penguins history for a goaltender. In the playoffs with the Penguins, he is 62-51 with a 2.65 goals against average and a .908 save percentage with the Penguins in the playoffs, of course. Another playoff moment, Marc-Andre Fleury, and of course the Penguins in general will be them facing the Washington Capitals. So it will be Sidney Crosby versus Alex Ovechkin. Of course, I always love to watch that. And of course, Marc-Andre Fleury will be in the crease for the Pens. So it's another memory I have him on the Pittsburgh Penguins. But yeah, most likely going to be his final season. And if it is, best of luck to him on his retirement. Throughout the game for the Wild and Penguins, Frederick Gaudreau, no relation to Johnny Matthew Gaudreau, but he had 2 goals and assists in the game. And Kirill Kaprizov had a goal and 2 assists as well. This is his 6th straight multi-point game for Kirill the Thrill, and he has 4 goals, 10 assists for 14 points during that span. He has 18 points in the season overall, so 5 goals, 13 assists for 18 points in the season. So he's tied with Vegas Golden Knights captain Mark Stone for first in league with 18 points. And the Wild end its long 7-game road trip with a 5-1-1 record. Overall, they're 6-1-2 of the season. For the Penguins, Rickard Rakell scored twice. Vali Pussinen scored for the Penguins. And Sidney Crosby had 3 assists for the Pens. And Joel Blomqvist made 34 saves for the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have lost 6 straight games already. They're 0-5-1 during the span, and overall they're 3-7-1 during their season. The Wild returned home for the start of a 3-game homestand against the Lightning Friday at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time, while the Penguins play the Ducks Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So both teams will be at home, except the Wild will be playing on Friday. Of course, Penguins will be playing tomorrow. Moving on to the Flyers and Bruins game. So Samuel Ersson makes 23 saves as the Flyers win 2-0 over the Boston Bruins. So the Flyers shut out the Bruins right there. They're 3-6-1 of the season. Tyson Foerster and Joel Farabee scored for Philly. forced during the second period and Farabee in the third period because that first period was a scoreless period, so nobody had any goals in that period. Marc-Andre had an assist for his first NHL point as well. For the Bruins side, Jonas Korpisalo made 17 saves for Boston, which have lost 4 of its last 5 games. They're 1-3-1 during that span, and overall they're 4-5-1 during the season. The Bruins were 16-0-4 against the Flyers at home alone heading into this game, which their loss after they got shut out. It has snapped a 20-game point streak against the Philadelphia Flyers at home. And the Flyers finally win in Boston. This is in regulation, so overtime shootout doesn't count. But this is the first regulation win for the Philadelphia Flyers, win in Boston for the first time since October 6th of 2011. So, great game for the Philadelphia Flyers. And they return home Thursday to take on the St. Louis Blues at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, while the Bruins will be in Carolina Thursday to take on the Hurricanes at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. One thing I do want to know before I move on to the next game is that these two teams will face off against each other Saturday in Philly at 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So it won't be too long before these two teams meet again. So the Bruins will look to get a win in Philly's home barn Saturday. Hopefully we see Matej Michkov score because I have him winning the Calder this season, but of course there's a lot of other Calder Trophy candidates out there besides Matej Michkov. All right, moving on to the next game. So Alex Ovechkin scores twice in the Capitals' 5-3 win over the over the New York Rangers Tuesday. So this is the first time that the Rangers and Capitals have met since the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs, in which the Rangers has swept the Capitals in the postseason. So the Capitals get a little answer back in this division rivalry showdown. And Alex Ovechkin scored goal number 856 and goal number 857 in the win. So he is 38 goals from passing Wayne Gretzky's on the NHL's all-time goal-scoring list. Of course, the Great One had 894 goals in his career. Entering this game, Ovi had just only 2 goals of the season. Now he has 4 goals of the season. So hopefully we get to see at least, if not a 40-goal season, which is what he really needs if he wants to break this record. But at least he can put up a 30-goal season, not a 40-goal season. But he absolutely needs a 40-goal season to break the record. But that will depend on if he stays healthy in most of his games. So, all right. Anyway, for the Capitals, Alexei Prolis had a goal and 2 assists, and Dylan Strome and Rasmus Sandin each had 2 assists for the Capitals, and Logan Thompson made 16 saves for Washington, which moves to 6-2-0 of the season. For the Rangers side, Will Cooley, Chris Kreider, and Philip Cito scored for New York, and Igor Shesterkin made 41 saves for the Rangers, and they had won their first 4 road games to tie their team record since the 1931-32 NHL season. And the Rangers return home to Madison Square Garden Friday for a 3-game homestand against the Senators at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Capitals will face the Canadiens Thursday at home at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, moving on to the Kraken and Canadiens. So this was a wild one right here, as the Kraken have won 8-2. Brandon Montour had a natural hat trick in this wild win for the Kraken. This is his first career hat trick for Brandon Montour, and he also pitched in an assist for a 4-point night. Chandler Stevenson had 4 assists for the Kraken, and Joey Decor made 28 saves for Seattle in his 3rd straight start, and the Kraken moved to 5-4-1 of the season, and they end their 3-game losing skid to begin their 5-game road trip. Shane Wright, he got to play in Montreal for the first time. So, if you guys didn't know, he was eligible. He was supposed to be drafted, or at least what fans thought he was going to be drafted in the 2022 NHL draft, first overall by the Montreal Canadiens. But of course, that didn't happen, and he got drafted by the Seattle Kraken instead. And he was pretty bummed about that, pretty upset about that, because and the fans were like shocked. hockey fans in general, Sean, not just Canadians fans or Kraken fans, but hockey fans in general. I was shocked to see when it happened when the Canadians didn't select Shane Wright to go first overall. But hey, it is what it is. But he did average 11 minutes and 25 seconds of time on ice. He was out there for 16 shifts. He did manage to get one shot on goal, but unfortunately he did not score in the win for the Kraken. But what does this mean for Shane Wright playing his first game back in Montreal? Well, I kind of already just told you the first part. He was supposed to be chosen by the Canadians, or at least everybody expected him to be chosen by the Canadians in the first round of the 2022 NHL draft, being drafted first overall. However, they ended up selecting Juraj Slafkovsky instead of Shane Wright, who was drafted fourth overall by the Kraken in the 2022 NHL draft. Now, he ended up scoring his first NHL goal against the Canadians, but that was at Climate Pledge Arena, so this wasn't in Montreal when he did it. And Jake Allen was on the Canadians at the time, so he scored on Jake Allen for his first NHL goal. But his recent game against Montreal, although he did not score, at least he kind of is growing as a player overall. That's what I like to say. But he hasn't. I think the past few seasons, like the past 1-2 seasons, he hasn't been playing that much with the Kraken because he's been in AHL for most of the time with the Firebirds. But at least he gets to grow as a player and all that other stuff for Seattle, and hopefully makes his presence known in these more upcoming meets against the Canadians, because I'm pretty sure Shane Wright will just like to take it to him. Put matters in his own hands, you know what I mean. But anyway, moving on to the Canadian side. I know I was kind of just going on right there for a few seconds. But moving on to the Canadian side, Cole Caulfield scored in his third straight game for Montreal. This is his 9th goal of the season, so he is really making his presence known. Sam Montembeault, who left the game because he allowed 5 goals and 13 shots. He was replaced by Caden Primier, who stopped 10 to 13 shots in relief. So Sam Montembeault was pretty upset. He skated off the ice. He was pretty upset and angry. He smashed the stick into the walls and stuff. So not a good performance from him. But Caden Primier stepped in, stopped 10 to 13 shots. But the Canadians did not get the win, of course, and they fall to 4-5-1 of the season. They do face the Capitals Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, so they look to have a bounce-back performance right there, while the Kraken continue their 5-game road trip as they head to Toronto to take on the Leafs at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time Thursday. Moving on to the Senators and Blues. So Tim Stusso's 4-point night powers the Senators past the Blues by a score of 8-1. Tim Stusso had 2 goals and 2 assists for that 4-point night, and he has 8 points during his 5-game point streak. So 2 goals, 6 assists for 8 points during his 5-game point streak. Brady Tkachuk and Adam Gaudette each scored twice for Ottawa, and Claude Giroux had 2 assists to extend his point streak to 7 games. This is the second time that Ottawa has put up 8 goals. Of course, the first was back on October 14th in an 8-7 wild overtime win over the LA Kings. And Linus Ullmark made 26 saves in this game, and the Senators moved to 5-4-0 the season. For the Blues, Dylan Holloway scored a power play goal 9 minutes and 4 seconds in that third period, spoiling the shutout of Linus Ullmark. And the Blues, rough game for the Blues, and as a Blackhawks fan, I actually do feel bad for them. They were outshot 35-27 in this game, and they turned the puck over a lot of times. They had 23 turnovers in the game, while the Senators had 9 turnovers. Joel Hofer allowed 5 goals and 21 shots, and Jordan Bennington came in net, making 11 saves in relief. So pretty rough game for the Blues, but they hope to answer back with a win in Philly Thursday when they take on the Flyers at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, while the Senators will be in New York, Madison Square Garden, to take on the Rangers Friday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, moving on to the Sharks and Kings. So this California rivalry showdown. Jake Wallman notches a 3-point night as the Sharks win 4-2 against the LA Kings. So he had 1 goal and 2 assists for that 3-point night. This is the second straight win for the San Jose Sharks. So entering this game, they were playing a back-to-back because Monday they had a 5-4 overtime comeback win over Utah Hockey Club heading into Tuesday's game, and now they went 4-2 against their division California rivals, the LA Kings. Tyler Toffoli, Fabian Zellerman, and William Eklund also scored for San Jose in this game, and Vika Vanacek made 26 saves for the Sharks as they moved to 271 of the season. For the Kings side, Akil Thomas and Alex Lafreniere scored for Los Angeles, and David Riddick made 17 saves for the Kings as they moved to 5-3-2 of the season. They had won 2 straight games heading into this game, so now they come out with the L. But they are back in action Wednesday as they take on the VGK Vegas Golden Knights at home at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and this game will air on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. The Sharks continue their 4-game homestand against my Chicago Blackhawks Thursday at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, so NHL games on the slate for today. So we got the New York Islanders taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Of course, the Blue Jackets had a wild, I think it was a 6-1 win over the Edmonton Oilers. Islanders are coming off of a 3-1 loss to the Anaheim Ducks yesterday at home, so they are entering the game for a back-to-back, so they look to answer back with a win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Winnipeg Jets are in Motortown today to take on the Detroit Red Wings at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Of course, they had their 8-game winning streak to open up the season ended by the Maple Leafs, as the Maple Leafs, I think that final score in the game was 5-4. The Jets tried to put up a comeback in that game. Kyle Connor had a hat trick in that game, but they failed to put up a comeback. I think the final score was 6-4. Sorry. The final score in that game was 6-4. Kyle Connor had a hat trick for the Jets, and then John Tavares had a hat trick for the Maple Leafs. So 2 hat tricks in that game Monday, and the Leafs hold on for the 6-4 win. So the Jets have lost their first game of the season, so they look to answer back in Wednesday's game against the Red Wings. Of course, the Red Wings are also coming off of a loss. They lost 3-2 in overtime to the Edmonton Oilers Sunday, so they look to get a win at home over the Winnipeg Jets. And of course, other news to bring out. So Oli Mata was traded to Utah by the Red Wings Tuesday for a 3rd-round pick in the 2025 NHL Draft. So Red Wings are making some moves. Of course, Utah is without Sean Durzi, and I think one of the other key defensemen, I'm forgetting his name, but of course, Utah hasn't been doing well of late. I think they lost 4 of their last 5 games. So ever since they started the season, 3-0, it just been going downhill these past couple of games for Utah Hockey Club. All right, another game that comes on today, Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Colorado Avalanche at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So a 2022 Stanley Cup Final rematch between the two teams. Of course, Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar look to continue their point streaks. I think they are up to 10 games during their point streak, so they look to make it 11 straight games in Wednesday's game against Tampa. Calgary Flames taking on Utah Hockey Club at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. So like I mentioned, Oli Mata was traded to Utah Hockey Club by the Red Wings for that 3rd-round pick of the 2025 NHL Draft. So, of course, Utah Hockey Club is coming off of a 5-4, what would have been an embarrassing loss to the San Jose Sharks. And I said embarrassing because Utah, they had a 4-1 lead. And they let one of the worst teams in the NHL, the San Jose Sharks, pile back, tie the game up at 4 in the final minutes. I think Tyler Toffoli had the game-tying goal. And then Wenberg have won it for San Jose, I believe, 5-4 in overtime. So things have not been going Utah Hockey Club's way, but they are looking to snap their losing skid against the Calgary Flames tonight. And then Vegas Golden Knights taking on the LA Kings at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This game will be the only game you get to watch on national television unless you have NHL Center Ice and ESPN Plus. And in that case, you get to watch all the other games. But this game will be the only game you get to watch on national television. This will air on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. And then it will be the battle of the Hughes brothers as the Devils come into Vancouver. So they start their 3-game Western Canada road trip, coming off of their 6-2 win at home over the Anaheim Ducks, and it starts in Vancouver tonight as they take on the Canucks. So it will be the battle of the Hughes brothers. So Luke and Jack Hughes and the New Jersey Devils will be taking on Quinn Hughes, Vancouver Canucks at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then tomorrow is Halloween, so I'm just going to tell the games for Halloweens in case you guys wanted to. In case you really are not a Halloween person, you don't want to go trick-or-treating, and you want to just sit back at home and watch a few NHL games. So I will tell the NHL games that are coming on Halloween tomorrow. So it'll be the Seattle Kraken taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, the Kraken are coming off of that wild 8-2 win over the Montreal Canadiens. The Maple Leafs are coming off of their 6-4 win over the Winnipeg Jets. That game will come on at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time tomorrow, followed by St. Louis Blues taking on the Philadelphia Flyers at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Of course, the Blues are coming off of a wild 8-1 loss over the Ottawa Senators, so they look to wrap up their 4-game road trip with a win in Philly against Mateev, Michikov, and the Philadelphia Flyers. Anaheim Ducks coming off of their 3-1 win over the New York Islanders yesterday. They headed to the Steel City to take on the Pittsburgh Penguins at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Of course, the Penguins have their 6th-game losing skid, and they like to get a win in tomorrow's game against the Anaheim Ducks. Montreal Canadiens taking on the Washington Capitals. So, of course, the Canadiens, another team besides the Blues that had a rough game yesterday as they lost 8-2 at home to Seattle Kraken. They head to Washington, D.C. to take on the Capitals tomorrow at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Of course, Canadians look to answer back with a win in tomorrow's game, while the Capitals look to continue their momentum in this game because the Capitals are doing really good this season. I think they're 6-2-0 this season, I believe. I think that's what I said in when I was going over that Rangers and Capitals game. Yeah, 6-2-0 this season. So they look to continue their season push in tomorrow's game against the Canadiens. And then Boston Bruins will take on the Carolina Hurricanes at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time tomorrow. So a 2019 Eastern Conference Final rematch between the two teams. And I think these two teams also met each other in another playoff series, but I'm forgetting the one. But they face each other tomorrow at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then followed by the Edmonton Oilers taking on the Nashville Predators at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. These two teams have already met this season. I think the Oilers won that first matchup against the Predators. Of course, the only difference in this matchup is they will be without their star player and captain, Connor McDavid, who was injured in Monday's game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So he went back up to Edmonton to be reevaluated. So there's no telling how longer will he be out. But, of course, he took a tumble in that, I believe, the first or second period in that game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he left the game with a lower body injury, and there's no telling when he'll return. But that game will air on Hulu and ESPN Plus. And then the final game of the night on Halloween tomorrow will be the Chicago Blackhawks against the San Jose Sharks. Of course, Macklin Celebrini is still out for San Jose with a upper body injury, I believe. So he was at the game yesterday against the LA Kings, but of course he was watching the game instead of playing in the game. But hopefully we get to see him back soon, because I think the Blackhawks face the Sharks. This is the second meeting this season. Of course, the Blackhawks did win their home opener against the Sharks, so this will be the second time that these two teams will be meeting. And we meet each other we have 3 meetings against each other, and I think the final meeting ends in San Jose in next year. So hopefully hopefully we get to see a Bedard and Celebrating matchup, because I'm pretty sure that's what every hockey fan is hoping for, not just the Blackhawks and Sharks fans. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for this episode. So thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Just a couple more things to say. before I end the show, don't forget to go out and vote if you have not already. I think voting ends on November 5th, so you want to make sure you want to go ahead and vote early as you can for who would you like to be your next president, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. And then, like I said, tomorrow is Halloween. So, of course, I just want to say make sure you guys are safe. When you go trick-or-treating, if you do choose not to go trick-or-treating, you can watch those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 NHL games that are coming on tomorrow. So you can watch one of those 7 NHL games that are coming on tomorrow if you choose not to go trick-or-treating and have fun at a Halloween party with your friends. But if you do choose to go trick-or-treating and have like a Halloween party, I just want to say make sure you guys stay safe. And yeah, always watch your surroundings too as well. So that's just a few things I want to leave off. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. God first as always. Be blessed. And I'll see you guys Friday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.